Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast with your hosts Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Divert your phone and grab a brew as Waz and Nic unpack tips, tales, secrets and stuff-ups from guests both inside and outside your trade, helping educate and inspire you to break the cycle of gut-busting and money stress and create a true trade business.
G'day listeners.
Hello, listeners. I was going to go
Foxy.
somewhere with vigour and energy, and I obviously didn't put enough thought into it before I opened my mouth. Hello, Warwick.
Shot first and aimed later.
Yes, didn't think very much at all.
So, Coxie, we're going to do something a little different today. And that just sounded like I told you what we're doing, so sorry about that. This is what we're doing today, Nicole.
Awesome.
Let's get straight into it.
Let's do it. Hello, listeners. Today we are talking about
Staying power.
staying power.
Staying in your power? No. I'm working hard on my lack of waffle. And yesterday's episode was full of it. Because
It wasn't anything but much. It's
Coxie
just waffle.
gave me the liberty of a whole episode of waffle after we recently passed our 500th episode here at Tradies in Business podcast. So if you didn't catch up on our request yesterday, please go hit us on socials, the website, submit a web form, do it in a review on iTunes. We don't care. However you do it, send us a carrier pigeon. Are they allowed to cross borders, carrier pigeons?
Good question. Maybe.
They need a work permit. Anywho, give us some feedback. Make this podcast your own. I was going to use the B word, but I think that's not 2021 appropriate.
No.
So make this podcast your own. Customize it. Personalize it. Tell us what you want to hear, and we will bring it to your listeners. Get it? Your ears.
Yes. Your ears. Not your schnoz or your mush, your listeners.
So go, and that's not really working because you're pointing to bits of your body.
I know, and people
no one
can't
can
see
this. So, listeners, please go hit us on socials. Are probably easiest for most of you. Either do a story and tag us in it so we see it. Drop us a DM, leave a message somehow, and let us know how you would like us to personalise the podcast. What's something you're working on, or what's an area that you'd like to hear more about, or who are some guests that you'd like us to go?
Oh, that's a good one.
Go and tackle and get on the show. We've had marketing people, we've had footballers, we've had, I can't remember what sort of other people we've had.
I don't know. I'd like some AFL players. Their shorts are nice.
It's not the shorts. So yeah, go and hit us, let us know. We are into our 500th episode season-y thing. We're into the, hang on, anyway, I'm waffling. So today, staying power, keeping it going.
It can be really challenging to keep going with something, particularly when it's not something that's necessarily in your strong suit or something you're particularly highly skilled on. It can be really challenging to keep doing what needs to be done. And yet, time and time again in business, that's where we see the results. By continuing to do the thing, whether it be the marketing. How often do we hear from business owners, oh, I have so much work at the moment, I'm going to turn off my marketing. What happens 3 months later or 6 months later? They've run out of work. They've not got no inquiries coming in. Or consistently, another really great one is working on staff development consistently. It can be really hard to keep doing it because it takes time out of your week. You're not sure if anyone appreciates it. I don't know how I feel about doing all this development and training for our team, and maybe they're going to leave me or go and start their own business anyway. So what's really the point? And yet the problem there, of course, is that that team that is not developed or not trained in the areas you need them to train in are still working in your business. So it can be really tempting, I think, to drop the ball at particular times about anything: client communication, staff training, advertising, marketing, looking at your cash flow, any area within business. It can be tempting to get distracted and stop doing that one thing that brings the big results for you time and time again, because we become complacent. Really easy to get stuck in complacency and lose motivation. That's a big losing motivation is particularly easy, unfortunately, especially where there are challenges or something comes up that, creates a challenging time or creates a roadblock or a stop within the business. It can be challenging to push through that, keep doing the things that we need to do. There are probably some strategies that we could talk through to keep moving forward. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking. You're not talking at all. This is really weird.
It's the new Tradies in Business podcast, Nicole.
Look at you go.
We're in the 100th thingamajigama.
Yes.
So it is tough to keep going with something when we don't get enough of the right feedback as well. If we're doing the marketing, or if we're doing the systems development, or if we're doing the meditating, or if we're doing the calorie counting, whatever the heck you want to talk about, if we don't get that positive feedback loop somehow, it's like, well, is this really doing anything anyway? Why would I keep going? And I have to admit, I almost did quit the podcast and shut the whole thing down before we kicked off several years ago, Coxie.
That's because I arrived on my white horse, sword in hand.
With your defib and zap some life back into the Tradies in Business podcast.
For a minute.
Got the old car battery out with the jumper leads on the nipples. And I did that because I thought, well, does it really matter anyway? Is it actually making a difference? Is it doing anything for anybody out there in listener land? Is it actually adding anything to my business and my life? And at that stage, I couldn't actually identify any positive impact that it was having anywhere anyway. So I thought, maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to quit. And sometimes I think that's a good conversation to have, because it causes us to stop and take a critical look at what we're doing and get realigned with, well, why are we doing this in the first place?
Yes.
Why did I decide to develop systems in my business in the first place? Sure, I'm not seeing the money rolling in the door just because I developed 3 processes for my staff, or I ran 2 training sessions, or 17 training sessions, or I've done 59 weekly team meetings and nothing seems to be getting better. I'll just stop doing the team meetings. Maybe that's not the answer. Stopping is not the answer. Maybe it's having a rethink about how you're doing the thing. And for me with the podcast, it was, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel like it's not making a difference, or that it's not aligned with where I want to go with my work with trade business owners? And so that sparked conversations with you and a whole new opportunity. And Tradies in Business, the whole thing wouldn't exist today if it hadn't been, in some ways, for me deciding maybe I should quit.
Well, it got really serious real quick there, didn't it? I think it's the other area that is great when we're not we're not getting back what our perception of the feedback should look like. Taking perspective from others. So this leans back into the episode, I think it was Monday, when we were talking about mentors and having people in place that can help, I guess, reflect back a different point of view. And I feel like when we reach those points, particularly in our business journey, which is what we're talking about here at Tradies in Business, whereby we feel like, okay, this is a bit of a waste of time, we probably actually need to seek out some advice or some understanding from others that are in similar positions, whether they are the trade business owners or the coaches and mentors, or they are people from industry associations, again, might be very helpful here. Get some feedback from them on what's standard practice, what are others doing in the field, what would be best practice then based on what I'm currently doing. Is there a better way to do it? Can I reinvigorate what I'm doing? So sometimes that feedback, we might, like anything, I think we gloss over what's actually happening for us, or we become so busy we don't pay it attention. So to get that feedback from somebody else might just be that one little key that means you can either make a change, or you dig your heels and you think, no, I'm doing this, and the longevity can then begin to come back and be a bit of a player again. It's just so tempting, I think, to let it all go.
Yeah, I see a lot of people that don't have a very big or a big enough reserve of faith.
Yes.
And whatever your persuasion in terms of the spiritual connotation of that, I think when it comes to our own lives, we lack faith in our decisions and we lack faith in our core beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
We have recently added back an aspect to our tradiepreneur onboarding and kick-off session, essentially, that all of our new tradiepreneur members do personally with you and I, Coxie.
Mm-hmm.
And it is around that concept of beliefs and how they impact our results. So I feel like sometimes our belief or our faith wavers, and those external people can actually help reinvigorate that or remind us of that, or perhaps give it a shot in the arm. Sorry, no pun intended. But give it a boost of energy and life, and breathe some life back into our faith and our beliefs, and remind us, I suppose, that we can do it. This whole idea of keep going, never quit, never give up, all that sort of stuff, that's great to say. And a lot of people go, well, how? And that's where I love the conversations we have here on the podcast, Coxie, is we do spend a lot of time talking about how do you do the thing.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people out there telling you the thing, but how the heck do I do that in my business or my life? How do I get more focused? Everyone's telling me I've got to be more focused. How do I do that? And so how do you keep going? How do you keep, even now with the state of the world, how do we keep going when we have no idea, not that we ever did, we thought we did, but we have no idea what the future looks like?
I think, again, to go back to perspective, sometimes results, that's what we're talking about here. When we feel like we're not getting the results from a behavior or from a system or a thing that we're doing, we tend to then start to think, well, what's the point? It's a bit like, I think you languaged in this episode or another one recently, going to the gym. And, if you feel like you're not getting the results, the scales aren't moving, or you're not lifting heavier weights, or you're not able to hold the plank longer or do more push-ups or whatever it might be, we feel like we're not getting the results.
Yes.
So it can be really tempting to give it up at that point. I'm just going to walk away. What's the point? It's not working for me anyway. Gosh knows I've done it 100 times when it comes to physical exercise. And yet where I see myself getting results often is it's a reminder, well, okay, sure, the scales might not have moved, but I just did a measurement on your arm. You've actually got another centimetre of muscle there. Or the scales might not have moved, but you can actually hold that plank for 3 minutes now instead of 2 minutes 52 that you did a week ago. So again, therefore, I think we tend to define success in any area by our own predetermination of what the results look like. And yet with some perspective, often there'll be a different result there that you can actually draw on. So for example, in your meetings with your team, you might not find that they're developing as rapidly as you like, but we're building a bond and a culture within the business that means they're now okay and more comfortable to come to you and say, I'm having this problem. I need some assistance, please, which is huge. I think people underestimate how that is a huge marker for success. Instead, we look at it and we think, well, Tom can't actually do that job yet. Now, I'm sure we've talked through it time and time again, or Tom's not following the procedure we've set and we've outlined in our team meeting time and time again. We've totally overlooked the fact that Tom's now comfortable to come and talk to you about the fact he's finding it hard to do so, or that there's another issue preventing him from doing so on a day-to-day basis. So again, perspective, I think, around those key areas where we're tempted to give up or we're tempted to let go might be that one thing that helps you push through, finding a different barometer, a measurement, or finding a different perspective on how you can implement that to get a better result or more consistent results, to give you, as you said, the shot in the arm, just to keep on keeping on.
There's an enormous parallel between what you just talked about, Coxie, and some of the uncertainty, I guess, gets used a lot, that word, at the moment with the state of the world.
Yep.
The metrics being used may or may not be a good indicator of whether we're progressing.
Yes.
And so there's this huge focus on some particular measurements or metrics when it comes to our progress in society at the moment with the whole coronavirus thing. And there's a lot of questions being asked about, well, is that the right metric? Is that actually the right barometer, as you said, Coxie, for whether we should be easing restrictions or having tighter restrictions or getting everybody to have an injection or not getting everybody to have an injection? And I think we do that on a smaller scale in our own lives all the time, is we're looking at the wrong measurement of success. And we've done episodes in the past as well about how that then spirals us off into invalidation and overwhelm and all those sorts of things. But it also leads into this topic around feeling like this is all for nothing. Why would I keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. Then that's a horrible feeling.
And so the how-to, I believe, is go have a look at the metrics that you're using to measure the success of the activity that we're talking about. Talk about the podcast. I was using the wrong metrics. They were too fluffy. They were too, they were too abstract and non-specific. And so when I got a bit more clarity about, well, what is it that is a measurement of success for this podcast, for me, a lot of it was just an outlet for the information that I felt I needed to share with people. Yeah. I mean, that sounds a little selfish, and yet that's created results for so many people. We've had so much feedback from so many of you that listen to this podcast about how you've literally started businesses listening to this show, and how the tips that we've shared and the guests that we've had on have helped you actually set things up way better than you felt you would have without it.
Absolutely.
So I think if you're feeling like you can't go on any longer, whether that's something as simple as writing procedures in your business, whether it's homeschooling your kids or, living with your spouse or using a sales script or having team meetings, whatever the thing is, push-ups, doesn't matter. Just have a look at what your metric is that you're using to determine whether that's a worthwhile activity. Maybe you can change the metric or add some other metrics or get more specific about that measurement. And, as Coxie talks about with the barometer, perhaps you're just looking at the wrong measurement.
Solving all the big problems as usual on the podcast.
So, look, team, we will continue to bring you this content. I'm going for 1,000 episodes. Coxie, you want to go for 1,000 episodes with me?
Look, I could think of no one else I'd like to spend this much time with.
We might go to 2 episodes a day so we get there sooner than my 70th birthday.
Oh dear. I hope people hang in for 1,000 episodes. That would be a cracking achievement, would it not?
Yeah.
What's it taken for us to get to 232 episodes? That took a pandemic and 3 years. Is it 3 or 4 years we've been doing the podcast together?
Oh, I'd have to go find the metric, Coxie.
That's a long time. We've got to work together to get to 1,000. Am I in for the long run? Yes, I am, because longevity is my game.
1,000 for the show in total, Coxie. So
Yes.
It's only another 750 out of you.
I can do it. I'm here for it.
All right, I realise my maths was a bit off there, listeners. If you can figure out what my maths error was, send it through to us and we'll send you some merch. Otherwise, drop us a comment and give us some feedback. Personalise the podcast. This is the Personalised Tradies in Business podcast where you get to tell us what you want to hear about.
Please do. Thank you for listening.
Hooroo.
You've been listening to the Tradies in Business podcast with Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Find out more about today's guest, tools for your trade business and other cool stuff at tradiesinbusiness.com.au.